Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. If you're not using the Bet Rivers app, what are you doing? The Bull, Bet with the Bull, happens every Tuesday and Friday, a parlay that I hope to make you money on. So far, I've done 4 Bet with the Bull parlays. I'm sorry, I've done 5 so far. I've hit 3 of 5 for you, including 2 in a row. So I'm hot. I hit on Tuesday and Friday last week, and we will try to keep that going tomorrow on Tuesday. Or if you're watching this and listening to this now, it's Tuesday. If it's Tuesday, April 23rd, then it would be today. But for me, right now, it's tomorrow. So we'll keep it going with that. More on the Bet Rivers odds when it comes to Cavaliers, and I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. But a lot to get to before that as well. Guardians with a great weekend, and the NFL draft is 3 days away. But the Browns have to wait 4 days because they don't have a first-round pick again. We'll get into why that's not a big deal. Next, in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers.
You're watching Adam the Bull on the Bet Rivers Network.
Let's start there, folks. The NFL draft is on Thursday night, of course, and for the third straight year, or the fourth straight year, actually, the Browns do not have a first-round pick in the NFL draft. It's 3 straight years because of the Deshaun Watson trade that the Browns will not have a first-round pick. And they did not have and they did not have a first-round. No, it's 3 straight years. Okay. No, I was thinking 4, but no. They had a first-round pick in 2021 because it was Greg Newsom. So it's 3 straight years that they haven't had a first-round pick. They didn't have a first-round pick in 2019 because of the Odell Beckham trade. So it's the 4th time in 6 years they won't have a first-round pick, but not 4 in a row, but 3 in a row. But here's why it's not that big a deal. Yes, okay, we'd love for the Browns to have a pick in the 20s, which is where they would be drafting if they had their first-round pick this year. But the Browns have done such a good job of building up talent on this roster that it's not the end of the world that they don't have the first-round pick. Would you have loved to have a first-round pick the last 2 years? Of course. In fact, the Browns haven't even drafted a player in the second round since 2021. Remember, the Browns traded extra picks. They moved around in the draft, dropped out of the second round. So in 2022 and 2023, the Browns had, in 2022, they drafted 3 players in the third round. And in 2023, they drafted 2 players in the third round. Those players between those 2 years, Martin Emerson, looks like a big win. Alex Wright, trending towards a win, but we're not sure yet. David Bell, looks like a loss. Cedric Tillman, on the bad side of the trend, but I still have some faith. Siaki Ika barely played. Not feeling great about him. But the highest pick the Browns have had in the last 2 years is 68. So they have not drafted high at all. This year they're at 54. They do have a second-round pick. That's if they don't trade down again. And because of all the talent that they have stocked on this roster, and because whoever they drafted 54 is unlikely to be a starting player, that doesn't mean that player could not be if he's really that special and if there's injuries and stuff like that. But the Browns are in a position that they've almost never been in for the past 30 years, and that's a position where they don't have to draft for need. Now, how often GMs have drafted for need over best player available? Hard to say. I am very strongly believe that you always draft the best player available, with the exception being if you need a quarterback, and let's say in theory the quarterback was the 7th most talented player on your board, and you had the first pick. Well, he's the 7th most. He's not now. If he's the 47th, I'm not drafting him first. But if he's the 7th and you have 6 guys ahead of him, but you need a quarterback, that's when I'd mess with the best player available. But outside of that, I would always take the best player available, even if it's a position that doesn't seem like you would need it at all. So if the Browns, who have good depth at offensive line, even though they had a ton of injuries last year, drafted offensive linemen in the second round, I will not be surprised, nor will I be mad. there's really nothing the Browns could do. I can't imagine there's anything they could do in the second round that I would be angry about. I mean, I guess if they drafted a punter or a kicker in the second round, I would go off on them. Anything else but that, even I'd be stunned if they drafted a quarterback in the second round, but I wouldn't kill them for it. I'd be stunned, and I can't imagine it would happen. Any other position would not surprise me. If the Browns took a running back in the second round, I'm not surprised. A wide receiver, certainly not. O-line, definitely not. Tight end would be a little surprised, but I wouldn't kill them for that. If they saw somebody in the second round that they thought was potential to be special, I got no problem having two tight ends that could help me win. Defensive line, certainly wouldn't be surprised there. Most of their good defensive linemen are older players. Linebacker, I don't expect them to go linebacker in the second round, but it wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't have a problem with it. That's their thinnest position. That's a position, along with probably wide receiver and maybe even running back, where a guy could get some playing time in his first year if he's not a starter. And even at corner, even if the Browns drafted a corner in the second round, it would not stun me. I think a lot of people would be shocked if the Browns drafted a corner in the second round, because they have a superstar corner in Denzel Ward, a very good corner in Martin Emerson, and a solid corner in Greg Newsome. But Greg Newsome, he's going to be a free agent after next year. Well, I guess that depends. This will be his fourth year. But, they may trade him. They may move on from him. Who knows? So, and obviously safety, I wouldn't be surprised either. Juan Thornhill is not a long-term investment. They did extend Grant Delpit, but, if they signed a guy that they thought could replace Juan Thornhill, drafted a guy, wouldn't surprise me. It's great to be in a position. Yes, it would be great to be in that position in the first round. Absolutely. But even in the second round, where the Browns pick, and again, if they stay at 54, it'll be the highest they've drafted a player since Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was picked at 52 in the 2021 draft. That pick's been a big hit, and that was a linebacker, so who knows? And JOK is their only good young linebacker. They obviously added a linebacker in free agency, a veteran, but JOK, their only good linebacker, and at this point, he's not signed to an extension, which is something we've talked a little bit about on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, and I'll talk about it here because, man, what a turnaround JOK has had. His first season was okay. His second season, he was terrible. And last year, he was fantastic. One of the best players on the team, one of the best players in the league. He played at a Pro Bowl level, no doubt. He was the only guy who showed up in that playoff game on the defensive side. The only guy. And anybody that watched the game knows it. All their stars, including Myles Garrett, Denzel, everybody. Nobody performed in that game except for JOK. He was an absolute stud last year. And I think, even though it's a position the Browns have not invested a lot of capital in, I think it is absolutely the right move for the Browns to invest in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and lock him up to a new deal, because he looked like a super special player. Now, it helped that the Browns' defensive line was significantly better last year and gave him the opportunity to not have to deal with as many offensive linemen. But it wasn't just about that. It wasn't just about the scheme. Those things contributed to his success. But JOK played like, he went from looking like the most inorganic, unnatural, stiff 2 years ago to the most athletic, organic, natural, instinctual linebacker that the Browns have had since DeQuell Jackson. Better than Schobert, anything Schobert did, and I love Joe Schobert. Best linebacker play I saw last year by JOK since DeQuell Jackson, which is, again, crazy because DeQuell Jackson the year before on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show said he thinks the Browns might cut JOK, which we all agreed with because he looked completely lost 2 years ago. So as the Browns head into this draft, whatever they end up doing, they don't have a ton of picks. They have a second round or a third round or a fifth, a sixth, and 2 sevens. And by the way, I'll tell you another thing that wouldn't shock me, and I know fans don't love this, but that's what the Browns have done. Wouldn't surprise me again if they traded down. Wouldn't shock me if they traded up a little. I don't think they could make a significant trade up unless they traded a player as well. But if they traded up from 54 to 50, yeah, that's doable. I don't think the Browns have a ton. Like, they don't need a bunch of late round picks at this point. They got to make the most of the second and third round pick that they have. They really do. And you want to hit. Even if we don't know it the first year because the guy doesn't play. Because if you draft a tackle, an offensive tackle, if you draft a guard, if you draft a defensive lineman, if you draft a corner, even if you draft a wide receiver or running back, I don't know that this guy's going to play that much the first year. I mean, I would think at wide receiver he would. I think if the Browns are able to get a special wide receiver in the second round, and this may be the draft to do that, it's possible if that guy looks good enough and plays well enough that he could unseat Elijah Moore as the third wide receiver on this team. I don't think that's crazy, and I would look at that as kind of a starting job. But even if the guy doesn't play a ton the first year because, hey, you got it covered, but next year we got to move on from this guy or that guy or wherever because we got guys getting old, contracts coming up, that's what you got to do. Once you pay the quarterback a ton of money, which obviously the Browns have done, yes, the Browns are able to manipulate the cap more than most teams because credit to Jimmy Haslam, he's willing to spend more than most teams. That's a huge advantage for the Browns. But yes, there are still going to be times where, okay, guy's getting too old, we got to replace him. And you don't want to have to replace every guy with a high-paid guy. You need to have some guys on your roster. Eventually, there's going to come a point where Jimmy Haslam's like, I'm not going to spend any more. And maybe there won't be. I don't know. He's kind of crazy. The Browns are expected to spend about $50 million more in actual cash, not cap space, but in actual cash than any other team in the NFL this year, which is insane. In little old Cleveland. Outspending the New Yorks, the Chicagos, the LAs, the Bostons, the Phillies, the Dallases, the Houstons. It's pretty cool. As much as I've criticized Jimmy Haslam, I give him a lot of credit for that. So it's still an exciting week. I know some of my old Animal House Twitter posse guys are getting together. Shout out to Axel and Marcus and some of the guys are getting together to watch the start of the draft this week. They invited me over. I can't make it. I'm actually heading out of town on the weekend, this coming weekend, but for just a couple of days. But it'll be fun. There's been some great memories over the years here in Cleveland with the draft, and let's hope the Browns hit on that second round pick. I am leaning, despite the trade for Jerry Jeudy, I am still leaning towards wide receiver because it's one of the. Based on what I have read and heard from people who are experts on the draft. I never pretend to be an expert on something that I'm not. I'm not an expert on the draft, so I listen to the people who are. And everybody I've spoken to or everybody I've read says that wide receiver, and I'm not telling you something that most of you don't know, that the wide receiver group is the best of this draft. And so I'd still love to see the Browns draft a wide receiver in the second round this year. I still think, but again, if they don't, they don't. Cleveland Guardians, they're just rolling along. The Guardians have the best record in Major League Baseball as we start this week. They're 16-6 off a sweep of the Oakland Athletics. They've won 4 in a row. They'll play Boston this week at home. Then they go to Atlanta and go to Houston. Boston's pitched really well. They had a good weekend series against Pittsburgh. We know Atlanta's really good. The Astros should be good, but they've been awful there. I think they're 10 games under 500. But some interesting, and their pitching's been particularly bad. So the Guardians will be tested with their big offensive numbers this next week against Boston staff and Atlanta. I'm excited to see that. Guardians did a great job against Boston. Guardians have lost one series this year. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Yankees at home. It's the only series they've lost so far in the season. Again, best record in baseball, 3-game lead on Kansas City, 4 on Detroit. I know it's early, but I like doing that anyway. Best run differential in baseball, plus 52. Offensively, the Guardians are 5th in runs per game, 5th in hits per game, tied for 13th in home runs per game, which for them is great. 2nd in doubles, 6th in total bases. Pitching-wise, they're 2nd in hits allowed per game, per 9 innings. And when I say second, the second least. They're giving up 7.15 hits per 9 innings. Only the Tigers pitching staff doing better. They're 4th in earned runs against per game, giving up just over 3. They're 4th in Ks per 9 innings, 2nd in the American League. Their only bad number, and this has been an issue for a lot of the starting pitchers, the Guardians are 24th in walks allowed per 9 innings. So the 24th best, which is the 6th worst or 7th worst. That's it. When you look at some of the team stats, it's really the only bad stat is the pitching. The starting pitchers especially are walking too many guys. Now, because they're not giving up a ton of hits, Bybee, Carrasco, Allen, McKenzie, because they've been not giving up a ton of hits as a group, they have not given up a ton of runs, even with the walks. But that'll catch up with them, especially, as we go further into the season. Those 2 great starts by Bieber will factor in less, but hopefully Gavin Williams at some point here. Individually, we talked on the Ultimate Guardian show a lot about Josh Naylor. He's having a magnificent season so far. Top 10 in the league, not in the American League, but in all of Major League Baseball. Top 10 in OPS, total bases, and runs batted in. He's 25th in hits, 13th in 2-out RBIs, and 14th in extra base hit percentage. Stephen Kwan, 2nd in the big leagues in hits, behind only Shohei Ohtani, who, by the way, Shohei Ohtani became the all-time leader in home runs by a Japanese-born player, passing the great Hideki Matsui yesterday. So kudos to Shohei on that. An excellent accomplishment. He will go way, way, way past Matsui over the next, 8, 10 years, whatever it is, however many years he plays. He's, obviously a fantastic hitter. But and what can you say? The Guardians are playing great baseball. There's nothing to be unhappy about. And, there are still some guys that are not hitting great outside of Josh Naylor and Kwan. Jose Ramirez, you look at some of his numbers. He's got 18 ribbies, which is fantastic. But only 1 stolen base and an on-base of 253. Jimenez has hit well, but he's hit for no power so far. No home runs there. But you have guys in Rocchio, in Freeman, and Brennan who could all hit a little bit. Bo Naylor, he's off to a pretty rough start. He's only batting $185. He's walked a lot, 10 walks to lead the team, which is good. But he hasn't been aggressive enough at the plate. Home run leader, Josh Naylor with 6. Tyler Freeman and Jose Ramirez have 3. But I was talking earlier with Zach, and I think Josh Naylor, if he stays healthy, it's a big if. He's missed 40 games in his 2 full seasons the last 2 years. He's had exactly 38 extra base hits each of the last 2 years, which is the best of his career. 20 home runs 2 years ago, best of his career. I think he's got a shot to hit 30 home runs and get 50-plus extra base hits if he can play 150-plus games. He's having a magnificent season. The bad hitting against lefties is behind him now for almost a calendar year. He's a tremendous leader, energizer. Love Josh Naylor. Gotta love what he and Kwan in particular bring to the top of this lineup. It's been special watching the 2 of those guys play. And as I said, now they stay home for Boston, and they do have a day off at home, and then they'll start the 3-game set with Boston tomorrow. Ben Lively will pitch against Tanner Houck. Tanner Houck's done a great job. Lively pitched well in his first start for the Guardians. Tanner Houck, he's pitched great for Boston. On Wednesday, Carlos Carrasco has been doing it with mirrors against to be determined for the Red Sox. And then on Thursday, an afternoon game, Tristan McKenzie. It's been a struggle for him, although he was a little better against Oakland on Friday. He'll pitch the final game in the homestand against Brian Bello and the Sox. And then the Guardians have a weekend 3-game set in Atlanta. And they'll face 2 really good pitchers in Atlanta in Chris Sale and Charlie Morton in the first 2 games of that series before they go to Houston and then eventually come back home after that. All right, let's wrap it up with some Cavaliers. Did the breaking news reaction podcast on Saturday after they won that exciting game. I guess it wasn't. It was exciting. You know what? It was not traditionally exciting because there was not a ton of offense, but I found it very exciting because I loved watching that game. It felt like a 90s basketball game with stifling defense and chippiness and physical play, and the Cavs were up to the task. a team that was killed for being soft last year by me and others. And I had no faith in this team coming into the playoffs. I picked Orlando because I needed them to prove that they were a physical team and could play with some toughness. And they have absolutely done that, or they absolutely did it in this first game against Orlando. If that continues, they will absolutely win this series, despite my terrible prediction of the Magic winning the series. I wanted to see it. I was trying to motivate the Cavs, and it seems like it's worked. I love the way they played that first game, and that's with missing 20 consecutive three-point shots after making their first 5. The Cavs did not shoot well at all. They still won by double digits against the Orlando Magic. So I couldn't be happier with how they played. Game 2 is tonight. Game 2 tonight in Cleveland. The crowd was crazy on Saturday. I expect the crowd to be crazy again tonight if you go and have fun. And I will be back tonight after the game, a little late night podcast. Probably be out about, I don't know, the game will be over around 10 o'clock, give or take. And we'll do a Game 2 react to see if the Cavs can take a commanding 2-0 lead in the series before it goes back to Orlando for Game 3 on Thursday. So make sure you're looking out for that tonight. You'll get the alert. Please hit the subscribe button. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. You'll get the alert when this podcast comes out. You'll get the alert when the game reaction tonight comes out. And please hit that subscribe button, thumbs up, like, do all that stuff. I appreciate it. Love you all. Thanks to Monzo for producing. We'll talk to you next time. Where else? But right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Real quick. We're not saying goodbye just yet. I got to give you the updated line. I mentioned I was going to do that. Looking at the Bet Rivers Sportsbook right now. The Cavs at this moment, it is 11:12 a.m. Monday morning. The Cavs are a 5.5-point favorite tonight against the Magic, minus 108 on the money line. And so there you go. Let's see. Real quick, player prop for tonight's game. Donovan Mitchell, minus 104, over 26.5. Love Donovan Mitchell over 26.5 tonight. Love it. He was phenomenal in that first game. And I also like Max Strus over 9.5 points. There you go. We'll talk to you next time. See you, everybody.